Okay, hi everybody. Just a little bit of a teaser teardown today. I went a couple weeks ago and I got that bad boy over there. I'm gonna tear that down. I'm gonna do a time lapse of taking it apart, and I'll splice in some talking about specific sections as I get to them, so you can see the whole thing and then specific pieces. But what we're going to tear down today is the extension piece for it. You know, the document manager where you can do several copies. It has stapling, stuff like that. It attaches on to the side of the copy machine there, actually where you can see that little black bit. It attaches just one little bracket, goes up under the brackets over there, holds it on, and then there was just a couple of wires back in here to connect it. So actually not too much connecting it to the main copier, but there's quite a bit of stuff inside, over there, over here, and then behind this panel here is more electronics and stuff. So I'll start tearing that down and we'll get to it. Okay, we just got the service manual or service record here, and you can see from wow, this goes back to December 1999 all the way through 2003. And I know there was a lot more service on this after that. What I'd been told was that pretty much everything on this thing had been replaced at one time or another. So, just a little quick look in here. We've got, I believe this down here is the stapler mechanism. Goes something back and forth like that. Of course, these are all the paper feeds, so you can have a document. If you're making multiple copies, say you're making a packet, you know, one packet for each person, you can have them print a pack, make a copy, staple it, spit it out here. This moves up, and then the next one goes on here, and on here, and on here, and so forth. And if you look over here, this is the, you can see that back there. That's what it can kick the paper to one side or another. So if you want sets of copies and you don't want to have to manually separate them yourself, one will come on this side, then it'll come on this side, then it'll kick it over to this side, back and forth, and have a lot of really cool these screw gears, I believe, are what lift these up and down, because these can go, well, obviously the top one can go all the way to the top, and back down. They can spread out for different thicknesses of copies, stuff like that. Got, obviously it's going to use stepper motors, and this is most likely the stepper motor control board. Got a little power right there, and not too much so far. So I'm going to put the camera back down and, continue taking apart. And just for those of you playing along at home, we've got a Ricoh sorter stapler ST25, serial number A339405095, made in Japan. Takes 24 volts DC. We got a nice big stepper motor down here, two-phase stepper motor, 5 volt, 5.7 volt, 1.6 amp, Vexta stepping motor, model C6244-9212K. It doesn't say how many, oh, right there, 1.8 degrees per step. Nice beefy little guy. That should come in handy for a robot arm or something later. This is the entire locking mechanism that holds it on to the other piece of the copier. I mean, it doesn't have to be very strong because they're both ridiculously massive and not really going to go anywhere once you install them. One more little interesting piece here. We've got a couple of photo interrupters, and then this gear goes up and down like a train wheel, and it's got this little bar so that the control system can count, looks like every half a revolution, because if this one wasn't falling out of its socket, it would be red ones here, 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 back and forth. And that leads over to just this little tab right here. If you can see that right there. It looks like it's just a page counter or something, because that little tab in there just goes up and down. And just a quick note, I'm sure most of you know this already, these are just little chassis pass-throughs. It basically, the wire, it's a connector that just clips in like that. So that clips into a hole in the chassis, and then the other wire just plugs in on the other side, and that's just a way of, one, making stuff here more serviceable, and to keep from having to put plastic bushings in all of these and running single cables. So this makes it easier to route the cables and protects them from getting chopped up by sharp sheet metal. Got a cool little servo here, basically just a coil of wire. When you run current through it, it creates a magnetic field and sucks this down, and then whatever you have connected to this, in this case this little arm right here, actuates something like a paper tray or anything, and then when you let the current go and help with the spring, it just pulls it back up. So, like that. Nice stepper motor with its little reduction assembly, so even though it's only it actually doesn't say on the sticker how many degrees per step, but you can see it just moves very slowly, and then with these gears reduces that looks like 4 or 5 degrees per step, down to maybe 1 or half a degree per step, just to get some really precision movement out of it. Just pulled out the control board there. It was just on a bunch of little plastic standoffs. We got a whole bunch of, I won't go through all of this stuff now. If anybody wants to see this in more detail, I'll take a couple of high-res photos, or I can do a separate video just looking at it and figuring out what's what, looking at part numbers and stuff. So if you want to see that, let me know. That's our little choo-choo train assembly. See, it just just a little regular little 24-volt motor driving it. One more little note. I was saying earlier that all these can go up and down. Well, there's all those fit into that worm gear that we took out, which was connected at the bottom to this one, which, if you can, I can bend it out a little here. You can see there's another set there, and then there's another pair of worm gears on the other side to lift the other side, so they all go nice and evenly, and they stay, a set distance apart. Basically, the distance between the vanes on the worm gears. In any type of printer, copier, laser, or anything like that, you're going to get a whole lot of these little just photo interrupters. They use them for, of course, because making copies and printing, you need exact locations, so they're going to use these to monitor the locations of pretty much every moving part if they can, not just rely on, a computation from the control board as to, I moved this stepper motor 8 degrees, so the paper should be roughly here. No, they're going to make sure that it's exactly where it's supposed to be, and they're going to use these to sense when something goes by at every step of the way. Got another really cool part here. This is the stapler. Goes back and forth, and it can come up like that to do an angled staple at the very corner, or swing here to do a flat staple at the corner, staple at the other corner, or pretty much anywhere in between. This little thing here, I believe, is where you put the staples, and they actually use, I'll get into detail of this later, flat staples, so it pushes out and then pushes on each side, so it actually folds the staple, puts it through the paper, and then folds up underneath. I'll do a separate little video on this later because it's a little interesting all by itself. Over here, all we've got is a little push button switch, and that's just to make sure that the door is closed, otherwise it won't work. You don't want anybody getting their hands jammed in any of the moving parts, and getting themselves stapled and then sewing or anything like that. Here's that real big beefy stepper motor I showed you earlier, and this was running this worm gear, and then this worm gear was going across and running the other two. So there was actually only 3 worm gears, not 4 like I thought. But yeah, this stepper motor was running all 3. This one on this side, and then the other 2 on the other. I'm not too sure what this did. It didn't look like it really moved back and forth or anything. I mean, this part moves back and forth like that. Oh, it's got some nifty little arms to... It looks like it grabbed the paper and then sent it somewhere, because it's got two different servos and a stepper motor to move it back and forth. So it looks like one servo closes, grabs the paper, and then it maybe brings it over one side or the other, and then the other servo releases it and it goes back. So maybe this is the mechanism for alternating the stacks of paper, and not the this bar. Like I thought, that might just be a guide bar, or they might both work together. I don't know. I'll have to look it up and see. Just a little transformer on a board, a couple of capacitors, and that's it.